Hi, and welcome to the Ask Dr. Angela podcast with everyone's favorite OBGYN, Dr. Angela Jones. Have you ever been too embarrassed or shy to ask your own doctor about your, girl parts? Well, you've come to the right place to get straight answers. Feel free to ask Dr. Angela anything women's health related. Obstetrics and gynecology? She keeps it real. Pregnancy? She's been there, done that. Menopause? She'll get you through. Young or old, Dr. Angela's got you covered, girl. Now, here's Dr. Angela.
What's good, people? This is Dr. Angela, everyone's favorite OBGYN, and I would like to officially welcome you to episode 342 of the Ask Dr. Angela podcast. Today, I am so happy to welcome Wendy E. Connors. As you all know, I'm doing a whole series on menopause. Why? Because nobody's talking about it until, of course, recently. Now it seems to be everywhere. But these are things that women experience daily. It's been around forever. And I just wanted to do something to bring awareness so that people would know that A, they're not alone. B, they are not losing their minds. And C, there are a lot of options out there to deal with not only what you're experiencing physically, but also what you may be experiencing emotionally. So I'm going to just, dive right in and say, Wendy, welcome, welcome, welcome. I know that you're semi-retired. You're all over social media, but I had an opportunity to read something that you wrote. You titled it, "My Doctors Didn't Help Me with Menopause. I Had to Help Myself." So before we jump right into that, I'm just going to give a very brief overview for people that are like, menopause what? Perimenopause what? Postmenopause what is that?
Yep.
So just briefly, perimenopause is when you're starting to transition or move towards menopause. On an average, perimenopause lasts roughly about 4 years. Some people can start this in their 30s, but typically it's early to mid 40s. Most of the literature will quote 40 to 44 years old. But what's happening in perimenopause is your ovarian function is starting to wax and wane. The levels of hormones that the ovaries are releasing is just kind of all over the place. And so how that translates to you is typically, periods can do any number of things. They can become more irregular. They can become heavier. They can become lighter. You can skip months at a time. You might start experiencing things like hot flashes, night sweats, mental fogginess, any number of symptoms.
Yep.
But menopause, which is, defined as a full year without a period, the average age of onset for that in the US is about 51. And note, I said the average age because I saw someone in the office today that's 56 and she's still getting pretty regular periods, but that's a whole nother thing. And so then we talk about postmenopause. Postmenopause is the day after you've been a full year and moving forward. Okay. So Wendy, I love what you wrote. My doctors didn't help me with menopause. I had to help myself. What happened? What was going on with you? Because you have some lines in there that I pulled up that I definitely want to ask you about that. But let's start with how you came up with this title. What was going on that made you write this?
Well, I was misdiagnosed, underserved, mistreated for so long. I would go to my primary care and just say, I'm experiencing this or this, and I'd get the eye roll. No one ever addressed perimenopause at all. I started with, like you said, the hot flashes, the fatigue. The periods were a little, every couple months, and then they get heavy, then I wouldn't, the same thing. So I just was dismissed all the time, but nobody ever recognized perimenopause. Ever.
Let me ask you this. How old were you when you started experiencing these things? And what kind of doctors were you bringing this to?
So my primary care, because that's all I knew, my gynecologist, and I was about 49, 50-ish, right about there. And, I just wasn't feeling like myself. I'm usually so energetic. I was personal training women too on the side, and just bubbly, zest for life, and I just didn't have the energy to complete what I needed to do for myself for the entire day. It was just for me, and I was experiencing like low motivation, which is not the nature of my personality.
Sure.
Yeah, so that
Even
was
even
daunting.
your GYN was like,
No. No, they just kind of dismissed it. I think maybe at the very beginning, they might have asked me if I wanted to go on birth control or something like that. And I was like, no, I don't. But I just wanted someone to recognize it and just confirm that, yes, I had started, but they really had no plan for me and they could offer me no help. Just
huh,
kind of like go with it, you know?
yeah.
And then until then when I got diagnosed with cancer at 52, then the doctors, because I had HR triple negative cancer, so they test everything and they confirmed then that yes, you're in menopause now, but there's nothing we can do for you. So we're going to head and treat you with your cancer, and then you just can deal with it as it comes along. But there was no recommendation for any help or anything, or just did give me information about it. Like I didn't have any idea. All I knew was my symptoms, but nobody offered me any type of help.
So
Just kind of
did they say we've confirmed that you're in menopause because they did blood work? Did they do like an
yes,
FSH level?
yes, that because I had HR triple negative breast cancer, so they
Okay.
tested my hormones, so they confirmed that. So I was like, oh, thank God, at least I have a confirmation of, a true confirmation. I kind of
Right.
figured because I had heard, but it's like a hush thing that everyone blows it under the rug. No one ever talks about it openly, and so I just assumed because I had the hot flashes and severe night sweats that that's what was happening.
So like none of your like I don't know if you have siblings or like grandparents, moms,
Nobody,
never talked about that? Because I got to tell
nothing.
you, I remember growing up, and this might be, I don't know, just maybe culturally, some people just, are better communicators and you talk about these things more. But I
Right.
remember when my mom went through menopause and was perimenopausal. Of course, that's not really how she phrased it, but she'd be like, "Woo!" We'd be
Yeah.
freezing in the house because
Yes.
she was so hot.
Right.
Or like we, as the kids would see the mood swings, the mood lability, and we
Yeah.
just like,
Crazy.
oh, it was
Yeah.
really crazy. So we,
Crazy.
from outsiders looking in, and of course I wasn't an OBGYN back in these, I was a kid, but
Right.
we certainly noticed the changes and, kind of, she all of a sudden just be burst out into like a sweat. And we were like, just thought it was the most
Yeah.
bizarre thing.
Right. I remember that too. I think with my mom too. Like, everyone's like, what is going on here? And the house that
Exactly.
was freezing. Yeah. Um, but it didn't really kick in for me until after chemotherapy and radiation. Then it was full bore night sweats. Like I ran a marathon in the middle of the night. I had to get up and change like 3 or 4 times. Yeah, it was
Right.
like soaps. Like I had just or come out of the ocean. I was just drenched with sweat. And it was, and then I was working full time. So it was very difficult, sleep deprivation,
Sure.
just all that. And so for 10 years, I struggled a lot with that. And just until I turned 62 is when I found BioT and bioidentical hormone replacement therapy.
So I have to say this, when I was reading what you wrote,
Yeah.
one of the things that you said is you said every single one of the doctors I went to,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
included my primary care physician,
And my
an oncologist,
oncologist.
and an
Yep.
endocrinologist,
Yep.
dismissed all of my symptoms with an eye
Yeah.
roll and
Eye roll.
condescending attitude.
Yeah.
I felt so deflated, mistreated, and
Yep.
underserved.
Awful.
And when
Yeah.
you said that to me, that really
Yep. Yep.
impacted me
Yep.
because there's nothing worse than feeling dismissed.
Dismissed. Yeah. It was awful and offered me absolutely nothing but the eye roll and the condescending and I felt broken and I was
Yeah.
leaving shaking my head like, am I really going crazy? Like they'd say, is everything okay at home? Can we can write you a prescription for anxiety. We can write you a prescription to help you sleep. And at the beginning I was like, okay, I'll do whatever it takes. But then I felt like I felt like I needed it every day. And then when I wanted to go off of it, they were like, oh, no, you shouldn't do that. You have to wean yourself off. I felt like I
Yeah.
was addicted to it. I just wanted to find the real me again and find out, really get to the root of the problem. But it just wasn't addressed. We can offer you nothing. I can remember my oncologist saying to me, you're just going to deal with it. It's menopause. It can take, 5 or 10 years, it's just something that you're going to go through. It was just, I just leave there so sad,
Let
you
me
know?
ask you this. Was your oncologist by chance a
I
male?
mean, yes. And my primary care was a male as well. Yeah.
Without sounding sexist, I'm going to bet the
No,
house
and I didn't want to bring it
that
up, but I was going to
that
say, yeah,
no.
it's,
Without
yeah,
sounding sexist, I'm going to just
yeah,
throw this out there, and I can get all the
yeah,
feedback that you want about this. I don't care at this point,
yeah.
because that's just what
No,
happens when you get to
totally.
be a certain age. Those
Yep.
kinds of things don't bother me anymore.
Nope.
But I guarantee you, if men experience menopause,
Oh
there will
gosh.
be every treatment option available.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
How
And honestly, think about it. Like I can remember men have been being prescribed testosterone for years,
exactly.
and women haven't been prescribed anything. And to
Exactly.
say, and no, all my physicians were men.
Yeah.
Hmm. And so
Well,
they didn't get it and they didn't understand it. And they were just like, it is what it
yeah.
is. Just, kind of like the condescending. The condescending part was like probably the worst for me, because I would just get so aggravated. It just, I don't even know. I can't even tell you how it made me feel. And I just had to keep going and keep living, because that's who I am. And it was just so discouraging, the whole thing. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't even explain. For 10 years though, it was such a struggle. And then even with my endocrinologist as well, I would complain there too. And no, everything looks great. And something's not right, because your thyroid's a hormone imbalance as well. And
Yeah.
but they just would look at the lab work and look at the numbers and go, no, you're good. There's nothing we can do for you. And it was just the most aggravating part of my life, but I made it
One of the
through.
things that you just said, just looking at the lab work and looking at
Yeah, yeah,
is, there is an art to medicine
yes,
that's beyond, the
mhm,
textbook, that's
yeah,
beyond the laboratory evaluation, because you're actually
yeah,
we're treating human beings.
yeah. I know.
And one of the things that I really admired the most about your story, and that I always say to women that I meet, and I see a lot of new patients, and one of the first things I ask them is, of course, how is it that I have the pleasure of seeing you today? Because I'm always interested. How am I seeing you?
Right.
And one of the main reasons that women will reveal to me that they left their previous practice is because they did not feel heard.
Yeah, I
They did
didn't feel
not feel
heard. That's
acknowledged.
exactly.
They felt
Totally.
dismissed.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, you could be the worst physician in the world, but if you listen to people and you
Yeah.
just give them in your ear an acknowledgement,
Yeah.
that goes such a long way.
Yeah.
But
No,
the
I
other
know.
thing that I always tell patients is, there are tons of physicians in the world, in the United States, and if certainly you have someone that is not meeting your needs,
Move
or
along.
then find someone else.
Yep. And this is what I preach now all the time.
Yes.
I do it all
Yes.
the time with my
Yeah.
social media. I just say,
Yeah.
please advocate for yourself. Know there's hope out there. You will
Yes.
find someone who will listen to you, but keep searching until
Exactly.
you find that person. Yeah,
And the
totally.
advantage that you have is
Yeah.
it's your body.
Right.
Nobody knows your body better than you.
Exactly. And I know that wholeheartedly, because just because of being in the personal training,
Sure.
you know, I just know my body, how it works. I knew something wasn't right because I was, a clean eater. I was healthy. And originally, this is what I said in my first article was, when you lift weights and sometimes at nighttime, your body will sweat because your muscles are going into repair mode. So they're working a little bit
Yes.
of overtime. So I kind of just like, oh, okay, I did a little bit of night sweat, so in repair, so that's a good thing. But no, it just got worse and worse and worse. It just wasn't any repair mode at all. It was hanging
So,
on for dear life.
so one of the things that we do know is that a lot of physicians, even now, just are not trained
Not
or
trained,
just
exactly.
in how to deal with menopause. And so certainly one of the big movements, and certainly the NOMS, which is the North Atlantic Menopausal Society, is really making a huge effort to provide a lot of literature and information so that people can, not just obstetricians and gynecologists, but
Right.
other providers can become kind of like menopause certified physicians and
Yeah.
just learn a little bit more.
They need
But
to
I'm
be
going
more
to use
open-minded,
exactly. I'm going to use
and
my own self as an example, and this is like flipping hilarious. Um, Literally, like some months ago, it's probably been about 6 months now. I was doing great. I work out, I eat well. I'm really kind of, I'm always, I preach lifestyle.
right,
Lifestyle is the best preventative medicine that there is. Eat
right,
well,
great.
exercise kind
Yep.
of thing. And so I do all of these things. And one weekend, just out of the blue, I just woke up just hot as hell. I thought, what is this? And then in the next instant, I was freezing. So I literally,
And
I'm
I hate
telling
to
you,
let.
I
Uh-huh.
I had stripped off all my clothes. I was under the covers. I was out of the covers. I was sleeping across the pillows, diagonal,
One
hanging off
leg
the
in,
side of
one
my
leg
bed.
out.
Yes, yes, yes. And I was like, what is going on? And then one evening, or like the next morning, my girlfriend was like, Ange, I woke up and your pajamas were on my side on the floor. Like, what is wrong? And I'm gonna tell you, it took me about a week before one Monday morning I woke up and I was just tired because I wasn't sleeping. And one
Exactly.
time I literally walked all the way down the hall, and this was like 2 in the morning, and I woke my daughter up out of sleep. And I was like, are you hot? And she was like, Mom, are you kidding me right now? Go back to bed.
Yeah.
She was so annoyed that I'm like, are you hot? She's like, no, the house is fine. I looked
Yeah.
at the thermostat. It was like
Crazy. Yeah.
crazy. I woke up Monday morning and all of a sudden it was like a light bulb went off. And I said to myself, Ange,
That.
how old are you?
Yeah.
Because I didn't go through a traditional menopause. I had
Yeah.
had a hysterectomy. So I wasn't getting periods for ages.
Okay. Yeah.
But I still had ovaries. And then
Uh,
all of a sudden this started happening. And I called my partner like that morning and I said, can you do me a favor? She said, what do you need, Ange? I'm like, can you just send me some vitamin E, estrogen to the pharmacy? This is what's going on. And it's funny because you're like, well, Ange, you're an OBGYN, you didn't even know what was going on. And that very well is the truth. It just took me a long time, to figure out what was going on with my own self. But,
right.
the sad part is that a lot of women just don't realize all the options that are available to them
Today.
to treat
Yeah.
these things,
Right.
whether it's hormone replacement therapy, whether it's, you know, non-hormone replacement therapy.
Right.
And even though, of course, ACOG will say that bioidenticals are not FDA approved, blah, blah, blah. I do have a fair number of patients that have used them with great
Yeah.
success.
Yeah. For sure.
So,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just, and I like that you took the extra effort to, well, if these people aren't going to help me, I can do some research on my own and figure out
Yeah.
what's going on and find out what
Yeah.
options are available to me.
Yeah.
Because you have to be informed and you have to be someone that is going to take control of your health
Yeah.
and you have to be an advocate for
Yeah.
yourself.
Absolutely. Yes. And yeah. And it was honestly my daughter who had some type of business connection with VHRT. And she called me and said, Mom, I think because I talked to her about everything.
Sure.
And And I said, and she said to me, Mom, I think I know what your problem is. And I think you should get in touch with, you know, a doctor who maybe you can talk to and have a consultation about BHRT. And I'm like, what the heck is that? I
Right.
had no idea. Because so this was, started, I'm 64 now.
You're a good 64, by the way. I just had to say that.
Thanks.
Yeah, that short haircut is fabulous.
I was sassy, right?
Yes.
So, and I was like, okay, I'll try anything, because like it's so taboo. Nobody talks about it. And then the 10 years ago or 12 years ago, whatever it is, no one even had the knowledge. No one knew anything about it. So it wasn't even that I could find someone in my 50s to talk to about it, because it just hadn't come to the forefront yet.
Sure.
It's all still so new, I feel like. But although when I'm on social media, I'll get a message from someone and she'll say, oh, I've been on them for 10 years. I'm like, you have? Where was I? Like, how did you find out? So.
Right. And of course, you are not on traditional HRT, and I'm going to define traditional
Okay.
as,
Yeah.
estrogen and progesterone
Right.
based. And that's because of your history of
Right.
breast
So
cancer.
I was just going to say that. Right. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So, right. So I had, so after, so I had, HR triple negative breast cancer. And after all my surgeries, I opted in, because it's a kind that metastasizes.
Yes.
And so, I was all done having children. And so I decided to just get a full hysterectomy.
Yeah.
No big deal. So because of that, so the only option I really have is testosterone. One doctor might say, well, we can do a little bit of estrogen, but one of my oncologists said, you're at the 10-year mark now with cancer. So I'm at 80% of it not returning at this point.
Yeah.
But HR positive could return. And so that's the estrogen side. So that is a little bit scary for me.
Sure.
Even though I feel like I need it even more now, because my FSH is going higher and everything else is lower. And so I see it and I feel it. And so I really am thinking I might want to try a little teeny bit of estrogen now too, but I don't know.
What is your predominant symptom? Is it the hot flashes and night sweats?
I don't have night sweats anymore. It's more about the vaginal atrophy card and the urethral atrophy card that I've learned so much about by reading, and I brought that out to the forefront too. And so many women have thanked me and said, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're talking about this, because that nobody talks about, but I'm like, I'm talking about it. I know.
And even though with like the vaginal estrogen, I mean, it's, that's not really systemic treatment. Your oncologists are still really hesitant to have you even try some of that.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
And with the BioT, I can do a pellet or I can do a patch, or you could maybe do cream somewhere. But they just kind of like shake their head like, they wouldn't do it. So I really, have
you given any thought to like the hyaluronic acid preparations now that they're using for vaginal atrophy, or
like
now
the Vagisil? Vagisil?
No.
What, like what? Like,
no, like I think like the trade name of what's on the market now is Reverie.
Oh yeah, Reverie. And so I did a live event just recently on TikTok, and a lot of women said that they use the Reverie suppositories and love them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it definitely is an option. So I have my appointment coming up. I'm definitely going to talk about that and ask about that. And then there's lasers now that help with the vaginal atrophy and things like that. Bring the blood.
I gotta tell you, the laser stuff.
Yeah.
Like the data on that is not great.
No, and I feel like I need something in there. I need the moisture. Because that's what the healer is, right? And that keeps it. Yeah. Yeah. So no, all the women were all about Reverie. It's so funny. Yeah.
That, and quite frankly, without getting like this podcast like for a more mature audience, getting some stimulation down there by whatever means necessary, and that doesn't necessarily involve a partner, and you can
Right.
read between the lines on that, because the more
Yeah.
blood flow that you can increase to that area,
Right.
the better. It
The
helps
better it is.
all of those things for
Right.
sure.
And that's what the lasers preach too, but it's just not, it's not enough. I feel like if I was to have that done, like it's got to be constant. It's not like a thing
Yeah.
you do, right? It's not like three
Yeah, I would
procedures.
look for some other options, because again, I
Okay.
just went to the NOMS conference that was, I want to say, like the spring of last year, and
Okay.
like the laser data to treat vaginal atrophy. Like I don't even refer to my patients for that anymore.
Okay. That's awesome. No, I'm
Yeah.
definitely going to do. And the Reverie is by prescription though, too, right? Or,
Honestly, I just give my patients, like, there's like, I'm sure like a ton of coupons. You
right.
can get a prescription, but there's so many coupons for Reverie, you can get it at a pretty discounted rate.
Okay, good.
Um,
I'm
yeah,
on it.
like I've not had any of my patients complain to me, or not even complain, but mention that it's a cost thing. And I have a lot of women that have been actually using that with pretty good success.
Okay, great. I'm on it tonight. I'm doing my research as soon as I get off of here. Thank
Look,
you.
and if listen,
Thanks.
if you can't find a coupon, I'll send you one.
Oh, thanks.
But
Yeah,
consider
I'm
that
like,
done.
and for me, like I'll pay anything just to be comfortable and just to feel better. You know
So
what I
let me
mean? So
ask you this. How much relief have you gotten with the testosterone?
a lot because I had severe like total brain fog, and I had joint pain and muscle aches, and my strength at the gym, I was so weak and fatigued, and just you name it, I was just feeling
Yeah,
awful. And then when I had my testosterone checked, I was at a 9, and so because I do BioT, hormone replacement therapy, their guide, it's not for everyone. The optimization levels are like
sure.
150 to 250. And so I was way off the charts in the dumper, and I was so happy, honestly, when the doctor said to me, he looked at me and he goes, "No wonder you're feeling the way you do." And I was like, "Why?" He said, "Your testosterone's at a 9, and we like to see women around 150 to 250. Now, a lot of women like it much higher, some like it lower." And I say in one of my videos, I couldn't wait to pull down my pants fast enough and get that pellet inserted into my butt cheek. Like, hurry up, you know? So, and then I felt within 10 days, I had my pep and my step back. I was at my
Wow.
daughter's and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like going outside and doing cartwheels with the kids. Like my energy came back, I, and then even at work, my little side job, people would say to me, "Oh my gosh, Wendy, you're sparkling." And I'm like, "I am." Like it shined through my eyes. I was just like, I was becoming vibrant again. And I was like, "Oh, this is all I needed was a little tweak of my hormones." And that was it. It was such a wonderful evolution, I guess you'd say, metamorphosis. I don't even know, but I was like, that's just what I needed. So I've been doing it for it'll be 2 years in April.
Oh yeah, and how often do you do lab work, and do you have to have
About every
the
3.5
pellets?
to 4 months.
Okay.
About every 3.5 to 4 months. Yep. And I do a very low dose of testosterone, um, and it's just enough. And I have no side effects, but I have all the benefits of just the little tweak of like everything. Like yesterday at the gym, I felt like I felt in my 40s. I was just so strong, and it just came out of nowhere, and I just kept going with it. I'm like, oh my gosh. And right away I text my daughter, "Oh my God, you can't believe what I just did." And it's just such a great feeling because I feel so healthy and vibrant and alive again. So yeah, it's just and I say in my videos too, like women really, you don't have to roll over and die when you go through menopause. That's not, you know what I mean?
I'm
You
so
can,
happy that you just said that, because just
yeah,
based on what you just said, that you
yeah,
felt alive again,
yeah.
is I tell women all the time, frankly, I think that this stage of life is the
It's when
best.
you start living now. And
Exactly.
honestly,
This
like,
is when you really come into your own.
yes, and in the just the confidence, and I know what I want in
Yes.
my life, and like I've been divorced for a bit now, and because of the levels of my hormones, I can say this is like I didn't even want to look at the male species. I had no libido, no sex drive, no nothing.
Sure.
I could care less, and now I'm like, oh, he's cute. Oh, so it's like
Right.
And so now I'm living my best life. And it's just like, oh my gosh. And it's so different at this point in my life.
Yeah.
It's just just a wonderful thing. So I'm just so happy. Yeah. So I'm I can't even, I did meet somebody and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was single for 8 years and I, went on a couple first dates and I was just like, no, no, no. And then when you're my age and you meet someone, when and it's just a whole different
Yeah.
experience. You know what I mean? So
I do know what you mean.
yeah. So there's no guesswork. There's no
Yeah.
I mean,
And
I tried that.
honestly, no one has any time to waste at this point.
That's exactly it.
So,
Right? We're all in it
yes.
for the same reasons.
Yes.
And the women on TikTok, well, what do you want? What do you want a date for? I said, I love companionship. I
Yeah.
would like to compliment someone else's life and have them compliment my life.
Yeah.
And just run off into the sunset. This is what life is about in our 60s and 70s and beyond.
Yeah.
And we can still, have intimacy. And along with, women are like, oh, I closed up shop. I'm like, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
hope.
Yeah.
Everyone's, so this is like, I raised kids and I was a stay-at-home mom and then I went to work full time. But in this part of now I have grandkids and I love that. And I love to see my daughter as a mom.
Yeah.
But now it's like my turn again. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so exciting. Like it's new beginnings, new life all over again. And it feels amazing. Yeah.
What's really also pretty exciting about you sharing your story is that now this isn't going to be such like a traumatic experience, even for your own daughter,
Exactly. She
because
goes,
she'll be
Mom, is
like,
this what
yeah, this is what my mom went through. And
she
this
just
is
said to
kind of,
me?
yeah,
Yep. She just said to me, she's gonna be 40 in August. She just said, oh my gosh, Mom, is this what I have to look forward to? And I'm like, yep. But
yeah,
you can get ahead of it
exactly.
like now. So yeah, she's very aware. So yeah. And I'm glad that we're close and we talk about it. So it's yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just feel energized and vibrant again. And I'm just, I don't even know why 2 years ago I started on TikTok because it used to be for dancing. Remember when it first came out and everything?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and I just posted my first video going to the doctor saying, okay, here I go. And I look at it and I don't even recognize that girl in the video.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It was just, so, yeah, I'm so glad I started and I get so emotional because I get so many nice comments and personal messages
Sure.
and thanking me for what I'm doing. But I thank them because they keep me going. And now I know I'm doing the right thing because it's still hard for women to talk about it. If they're married, they have a hard time talking to their spouses about it and their families. They
Sure.
don't understand,
Yeah.
and they've got to find the right physician, the right connection in
Exactly.
order, and that's difficult. And they don't have, I don't know if it's a confidence thing or they just don't know how to go about it.
Yeah. Or even people feel embarrassed.
Embarrassed. Yeah. And it's
You
nothing to
know?
be embarrassed about. And that's my
Exactly.
thing. And that was the whole vaginal atrophy thing. I thought, well, you know what? I'm not embarrassed by it because I know I'm not the only one. And
Exactly.
if I start talking about it, more and more women are gonna join in on the conversation. And
Yeah.
so it's a great thing,
Yeah.
it's a real thing. And urethral atrophy, the same thing. Women who go on that testosterone too, they've said they used to get like UTI. I never had
Sure.
UTIs in my life. They had chronic UTIs and chronic yeast infections and as soon as they started, optimizing their hormones a little bit, they're totally gone. And they say that my husband and I were like, we were when we met and everything's back and it's a wonderful
Sure.
thing, so not for everybody, but for a lot. So it's such positive feedback.
But you know what? I
Yeah.
think that probably the biggest takeaways for me,
Mhm.
I tell people I learn things from women that I see all the time.
Yeah,
But, a couple of like big points from this conversation for me is number one, be your own advocate.
absolutely.
That's
Yep.
first and foremost.
Yep.
Number two, if you're seeing a physician that's not meeting your needs or that you feel gaslit by or,
Yeah,
dismissed, find someone else because
absolutely.
there's going to be someone out there that can meet
Yeah,
your needs.
absolutely. Yes. Yep.
Number three, in being your own advocate, I like that you did the research. And the
Yeah,
nice thing about platforms like this is when we talk about these things, we let women know that, there are both traditional as well as non-traditional things to
right,
treat your symptoms.
right,
And for me personally, as the provider, as an OBGYN, my job is never to tell patients what to do. I
right.
merely give you the options and then you can
Choose.
make your
Yeah,
own informed
yes,
decision
right,
about what you want to do.
right,
Since we're talking about menopause, if we're treating menopausal symptoms, that might be, more natural methods, whether
right.
that's, other things like bioidenticals. It might be traditional, or even there's a lot of non-hormonal things that are now on the
A
market
lot of
for
people
women
use
that
like,
can't do,
yeah,
traditional
a lot,
things.
right.
Most
And I
preparations
get
can be creams,
cream.
patches.
Yes,
Yes,
yeah. And they have
yes,
the yam cream now, which everyone talks about and says, yeah, I've got message, oh, you should use the yam cream. And people write to me, well, what do you think of this and this? I said, listen, I'm not a doctor. I never pretend to be one. Whatever
yeah,
you choose to do that makes you feel good is your answer. It's
yeah,
all up to you. You know what
yeah.
I
I
mean?
think as long as people make an informed decision, it's what
Yep.
you want to do.
Yep. Yeah.
And so I think that's like the biggest piece is it's your body. You
Yep.
have the right to decide. And
You're
if it
right.
doesn't work for you, just stop using it.
Exactly. Then you go on to the next thing.
It's easy.
That's
I
exactly what I
know.
say. That's a
Exactly.
take on it. Yep, totally. I agree with you 1,000%. That's exactly how I feel about it. But they have to, and so what I try and do is just give the knowledge because a lot of people don't know where to find the knowledge. So
Yeah.
I give little tidbits of my life and like how
Yeah.
I came to finding what makes me feel good. And if
Yeah.
they can take a little piece out of it and it works for them, that's great. But just did this a little guide. But
And
it's
at
a
least
lot. It's a
it's
lot
like
of information, you
putting
know?
something out there because, a
Yeah,
lot of times people just don't even know where to go. Like,
right, exactly, you know? And that's what it is. So they'll sit and listen to me. Like if I do a live event, I'll just read, like I've done notes. So I'll just sit and read out of my notebook everything to them. And because a lot of them don't want to do the homework or they don't know where the resources are to
sure.
find the information. And so I'm just like I always say I'm their girlfriend on the other side of the camera here. And
Yeah.
I'm just very transparent and it's like you're my best friend next door and we just like chit chat and it's that comfortable. So um they get a lot out of it, which makes me so happy, you know?
Yeah.
And I just, yeah, I love it. So but you're awesome. Now, if I had you as an OBGYN, things would have been a lot better.
Yeah, because you walk in and I say, "What's going on with your vagina?
Yeah.
How
And I
how's
would tell
how's
you
your
straight.
vulva?" Yeah. And so it's
Yeah.
conversations like these. And of course,
Yeah.
this is how I look in the office. If you could see my bottom, I've got on some dark denim Levi's and some green Doc Martin boots.
Yeah. There you go.
It's about approachability
Yep.
and just
Yeah.
making women and people feel at ease.
Yeah.
You know,
Comfortable. Yes.
exactly. And I tell folks all the time, these parts belong to you.
Yeah.
That's your vagina. You can touch
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And you can even say the word. Like,
Exactly. So funny story actually about like making women more comfortable with vaginas. I actually went to a vagina and vulva cookie decorating session over the weekend.
Love it.
If you go to my social media, you'll see the cookies. It
Oh my
was
God. I have.
phenomenal. It was phenomenal. And it was just a way to kind of break the stigma,
Yeah.
you know, that
Yeah.
vaginas are, it's not a dirty word. Vulva is not a
No.
dirty word. It's
Yeah.
just a part
No.
of your anatomy. It's a part of who you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. No, I
You know?
know. It's so funny because um I had a pin that I wore on one of my videos that said, ask me about my vagina. It's like, I said, I hope I don't get thrown off of TikTok because they didn't throw
I
me off.
know. I
It
know.
went, right? It's like, no, we can say the word. It's not a dirty word. It's a part of our bodies. Like, don't be ashamed of it. But, times are changing and it's a good thing for women going
Yeah.
forward. Because the menopause and perimenopause, for some reason, I don't know if it's always been like this, but it's starting younger, I feel like, with women in their young 40s and even late
Yeah.
30s, like 37 and 38,
Hmm.
if they're feeling a
Yeah.
certain kind of way and then they have severe perimenopausal symptoms.
Yeah.
So crazy. Yeah,
Yeah. And the
everyone's so
other,
different.
yeah. And the nice thing about it is you can start treating those symptoms sooner than later.
Early, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So
Yeah.
let me, Wendy, I'm going to give you an opportunity because we've like actually, it's so easy to talk to you. Like we could talk
Okay.
forever, but
I
I want to
know.
give you an opportunity just to like bang out, any take home points you want to make, strong message that you want to send, and then how people can like follow you and hear more about your story and what you have to say.
Okay, so what I want to just tell women is to, like you say, just advocate for yourself. Keep going until somebody listens to you, and make sure. I said when I do the BioT, and I've had a couple different providers, and a couple have retired. Now I have one. There's such an amazing connection, which makes my journey so successful, because even though I know so much and have done so much research, every time I go for my pelleting, I have new questions. And she
Sure.
sits and takes the time and addresses every single one of them to me. And it just makes for just like success of everything. And I just leave there like glowing and feeling amazing.
Yeah,
So yeah, but I just want women to know that there's hope. And I always say I want to be your beacon of light, because I was in that dark, dark place that you're in now, that you're experiencing, and it doesn't have to be like that. And like we said, you don't have to roll over and die in these wonderful years of our lives, because our longevity, our years we're going to live longer too. So we might as well be happy as hell as we're going through those years,
for sure.
And
Where can people find you on TikTok? Or are you on
so
Instagram? Give
on
it to me.
TikTok, I do a little bit on Instagram, but it's mostly TikTok, and it's
Okay.
at Aloha Mum. So it would be ALOAMUM. And it will say, I've had down that I'm a health and wellness advocate for women going through menopause and BHRT. And then
Okay.
because I do BioT, I just want to tell women that they can start if they just the BioT page, their web page is very informative. So they just want to do a little bit of research and gain a little bit of knowledge on that part of it, hormone replacement therapy. It's all there for them. And then if they want to go find a provider in their area, it is so easy. At the top, there's a little box that says find a provider. You put in their little, you put in your zip code, and out will populate all the providers in their area. But I always say, call a couple, do your homework, because it's from the girl who answers the phone to the doctor or the nurse practitioner you're actually going to meet, and just make sure if there's a connection. And if you go for the consultation and there isn't a connection, then you go to the next one. Don't feel like because you picked one, you have to be with that one. Like, I'm all about connection.
Exactly.
And my provider and we exchange phone numbers, and I can text her. She's a mom, but she works full time. When she gets a chance, she'll text me back, or she'll call me, or we email each other. And so it's like bittersweet. And I just feel so comfy, cozy. And we talk about everything. We say the word vagina over and over again. And it's, it's a good thing.
Right.
So, but yeah, Aloha Mum on TikTok is my biggest, platform, which I just pay it out there all the time. But I started the series on the vaginal atrophy.
Sure.
And but the live events are huge when women log on, and just because they're behind their phone, you can't really see them. I know. I always say, does anyone want to come on with me and talk about it? You don't have to show your face, you can just say your words, but they just rather just type, and that's fine. But I'm never going to stop, because it's been the best thing I ever did, is to share my journey, and whoever knew that it was going to evolve into this. But so someone described me as my metamorphosis of how I became an advocate and influencer. But it's a beautiful thing. Like, whoever thought? I didn't even know what TikTok was years ago.
Sure.
So,
And this is a lesson that there's always more room to grow and to evolve.
Always. I learn every day, and I constantly go back and go over my notes and say, oh, I should revisit this, because I haven't talked about this in a long time. And so I try and do that, but whatever I can do to help. And just like I said, I just want women to know that I want to be their beacon of light, and just know that there's hope, and keep searching till you find someone who will listen, know? Yeah, because we go through hell. Like, our body composition is a huge thing that changes. Women get that menopausal like belly bloat, they call it, that estrogen, got the low libido, the poor sleep, the joint pain, the night sweats, and then women are working longer. And so they're up
Yeah.
all night sweating and have some major sleep deprivation like
Sure.
I do. And then you have to get up and go to work. And then you think when you get to work, you're going to be chastised because your work performance isn't on top game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very difficult,
Yeah.
there's a lot of challenges that we go through, but we can storm right through it and be good,
So
and
Wendy, I want to say thank you so much
oh, my
for
pleasure.
coming
Thank
on
you.
and for
Thank you so
just
much.
sharing. I know I have personally learned a lot from listening to you. I'm sure that all of my viewers and listeners will learn a lot. And you drove home a lot of options, being an advocate for yourself, finding the right position and not settling until
Not
you do.
settling. And that's
But
in life in
also,
general. Yep.
exactly. But also
Mhm.
just knowing that there are a ton of options
None.
available to
Yep.
deal with these symptoms,
Right.
perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, etc. It's just a matter of, finding out what's going to be the best one for you.
Exactly. Everyone is so
Okay.
different. Everyone's makeup is so different, and about everything.
Exactly.
Our journeys are totally there. I always say there's no two stories alike. So you
No,
can't just say what was good for her is going to be good for me. It's not
exactly. Because
that.
your journey is your journey. We all
Yep.
have a
Yep.
different journey.
Yep.
And so, as per usual, in closing, I would like to thank you all for listening to the Ask Dr. Angela podcast. You all know where to reach me, www.askdrangela.com. That's AskDrangela.com. There you can find all my social media platforms. Basically, just Ask Dr. Angela. That's what's on Instagram, Facebook, and I guess now on X. I always read an excerpt from one of the numerous books that sits on my desk, but this one is one of my favorites. It's Life's Little Instruction Book. And today's quote that I'm going to leave you with, I thought was very fitting. It's lesson number 405, and it says, "Don't be intimidated by doctors and nurses. Even when you're in the hospital, it is still your body." Remember that. Nobody knows you better than you.
Yeah,
So
totally.
until next time, choose happiness. I can't wait to reconvene on episode number 343, where we will continue our series on menopause. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Ask Dr. Angela podcast. For more information on women's health and the show notes for this episode, please visit Dr. Angela at www.askdrangela.com. While you're there, don't forget to leave your own message for Dr. Angela. See you soon. All of the information provided and discussed in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and should not take the place of consulting a physician. This podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease or illness and does not and should not replace treatment from a medical professional. Listening to and participating in this podcast does not create a doctor-patient relationship between you and Dr. Angela Jones. If you need medical advice or assistance, you should consult a physician. Listening to and participating in this podcast is subject to the terms and conditions posted at askdrangela.com/terms.